on housing, open space, and your taxes. This triad of issues has been in the forefront of East Hampton planning for years, but particularly the last 30 years. Since 1984, there was a serious update of our comprehensive plan, which is like a blueprint for what the future of this community will look like. And then in 2005, 5 years ago, there was a second update on that. A comprehensive plan is a living, changing document. But in East Hampton, as you'll hear, we have set a course. And that course can be tweaked. But I feel personally that we are walking a tightrope in this town between sustainability and overdevelopment. Sustainability, I hope, will be our choice. Overdevelopment and a fragile piece of land sticking out into the second largest body of water on the planet that is made up of sand, with the next stop Portugal, is not an option. And on that tightrope, all it takes is a little push for its downfall. We're at the end, as Montauk people will tell you. There's nowhere else to go. We drink the water underneath it. It's in our nest. We are sitting on it. It's a sole source aquifer. We'll be talking about build-out figures, infrastructure, providing housing for local people. But in about 3 minutes, I hope to give you a quick geological natural history tour of this place that we love. East Hampton is known internationally as a beautiful place that has not been ruined by overdevelopment. It is probably one of the most fragile pieces of land, correction, sand, along the East Coast. Look at how narrow it is. In fact, 12,000 years ago, this didn't even exist. Montauk was its own island. Might want to be again, because they'd like to think they're independent, but they were. So let's start at this end. Go hunt furniture. I'm doing the teacher thing here. About 12,000 years ago, a glacier came down from the north, and it stopped about a mile behind us in Stony Hill. And it dropped, thank you, New England, topsoil that is the richest topsoil in the country. 2 feet of, it's even named after a town here, Bridgehampton Sandy Loam. As it melted, that's where we got our drinking water. The fresh water of the melting, retreating glacier stayed in a puddle underneath us. The rest essentially is sand. We're not on any mountains like Vermont is. As it retreated, it also left what it was pushing in front of us to the outwash plain, which is right behind us, starting with the farmland behind Amagansett and going right down to the ocean. Same with Waynescott. Who knew economically that Suffolk County would be the #1 agricultural county in New York State? Sorry, dairy farmers upstate, we're #1. That's a resource, especially now that we're seeing how important a sustainable food source is to have locally. It also, to save it, contributes to our rural character, which is another draw for a big economic segment of our community, which are second homeowners and tourists. The glacier also left big ponds, beautiful bays, and I'm introducing you to Hudson, Julia Prince's new son. Okay. Also left surface waters that are some of the most prolific in the Northeast. The north meets the south in currents, and a golf course comes up here, so that if you take a snorkel class from Southampton, you can go out into Shinnecock and see seahorses and tropical fish. We are filled with life going north and south. There's a current that comes through here that with the slightest push can be destroyed. It is a fragile balancing act. Lisa LaCoria, I finished with this little intro, will be talking about why, starting in 1984, planners decided to zone this town as they did. We have our own, one of the places in the Northeast where you can lay on the beach, look up, and see the Milky Way. The Milky Way. If you go over Shinnecock and go about 5 minutes west, it's gone. Do you know how fragile that is? Do you know how important the lighting ordinance, the dark skies lighting ordinance is? We also have the most interesting flora and fauna in New York State. Hidden away, where just a few of us know, is a species that is globally significant. It is found in only 10 places on the whole planet. Also hidden away and protected is an entire Native American Wontowket village. Erosion has covered it with a very thin bit of soil, but because of planning, it's protected. What I'm going to do now is ask you to keep in mind among our groundwater, our flora and fauna, our farmland, our surface waters, best fishing port practically internationally. I'm willing to go New York State now. And remind you of how the environment, what we have been given and we are stewards of, is our economy. Okay, we're going to be introducing ourselves, and you're going to be getting a lot of fact. Once we get presentations from each one of our professionals here, we'll be opening up for questions. I'm Deb Foster, by the way. Been on the planning board for 19 years, 8 as chair during a very tumultuous time, and then on the town board for 4 years. And again, welcome. This is important stuff, and we're at a tipping point.
You're not going to order their speech?
No, you're just going to introduce yourself.
Oh, I'm Tom Roll. I'm the Director of Housing for the town of East Hampton. I was on that same planning board as Deb back in 1984. Was on the town board for 4 years, and was Assistant Director of Housing for the town, and now Director of Housing. That's sort of been my life since I graduated from college.
I'm Chuck Hitchcock. I've lived here for 42 years now. In 1986, I chaired the Zoning Board of Appeals for 6 years, and as a result of that, began teaching a course on the local community, which included the 5 eastern towns of Suffolk County at Southampton College of Long Island University.
I'm Jeannie Nielsen. I am born and raised here. My family dates back to as far as Teddy Roosevelt's Rough Riders when they mustered out to Montauk. I've been in public office for 24 years, and I've been your assessor for that many years.
Hi, Bob DeLuca. I'm president of Group for the East End. Group for the East End was formed about 38 years ago in Bridgehampton. We're a conservation advocacy and education organization. And we have offices in Bridgehampton and South Old Town. And we make a full-time commitment really to comprehensive planning, environmental protection, natural resources protection out here at the East End, and rely upon the public's help so that we can do it. And I'll be talking about the Community Preservation Fund.
Hi, I'm Lisa LaCourie, and I'm very pleased to be here. I had served as East Hampton's planning director for about 15 years and worked for the planning department a few years before that. Subsequently, worked as a consultant for East Hampton, helping work on comprehensive plan matters, and have worked with environmental organizations throughout the country. Scenic Hudson, one of the first environmental organizations, the Environmental Defense Fund, and a number of others in the Sierra Club, so that's been pretty much my specialty. And I'm a resident here in East Hampton and in City Island in the Bronx.
I'm Jeremy Samuelson. I work with Bob DeLuca at Group for the East End. I'm an environmental advocate. My work with the natural world on the East End of Long Island began in 1997 when I was working doing my undergraduate thesis work with local commercial inshore fisheries, trying to determine what the history and sustainability of specifically pound trapping is. And I spent a couple years on the waters with some families that have been doing it out here for a couple hundred years, and part of me still wishes there was a way to make a living doing that. After that, I've spent time reporting on environmental issues on the South Fork, specifically for the East Hampton Star and for the New York Times. Then took some time off and worked as a landscaper, wanted to get my hands back into the dirt before I eventually did some planning work with East Hampton Town, and then ended up joining Group for the East End about 4 years ago.
Hello, my name is Phelan Wolf. I've worn a couple hats around town. I used to work for the town of East Hampton in the town attorney's office, and as the zoning board attorney, I also practiced real estate law in private practice. I work as a real estate broker now, and I analyze real estate trends for some of the local papers. I have a weekly column analyzing the transfers, and I review the quarterly reports issued by the area brokerages to spot trends, and I read about that in the paper as well.
Great. Can you hear?
Barely.
Barely. Okay, great. First up is going to be Lisa, our ball of environmental energy. I can remember back to when we met Lisa about 30 years ago. It's been very kinetic and wonderful since. She's going to be talking with you and educating you somewhat on not the geology, but why we have planned the way we have planned, and the planning board and the town board have made the decisions that they have so far over the past 30 years to protect our resources. Also, she's going to start giving you some up-to-date demographics, because this beautiful sense of place also has a community. So who are our people, and what do they do, and how do they make a living?
Thank you. So as Deb mentioned, I'm going to talk a little bit about our comprehensive plan, which is our blueprint, which I helped write and the town board adopted in 2005. And just to give a little bit of background, how did this come about? It was a product of an extensive effort involving 2 administrations of the town board, 17 citizen subcommittees, business organizations, civic organizations, environmental and other organizations. And in addition to that, there was a citizen survey with 112 questions that there was an overwhelming response. Normally, if you get like a 2% response to a survey, that's statistically significant. Here we had well over 20% response. And that was done under the Schneiderman administration in the early part of 2000. And the response came back overwhelming. The #1 issue for East Hampton residents was groundwater protection and protection of quality of life. People are very well aware of the fact that we are living on top of our drinking water reservoir. It's not, you know, some other lake, some other pond, some other place. Our houses are sitting right on top of the area that we're going to be drinking from. And it's a concern to us that we have pure, good drinking water, whether we get it from our own private on-site well or whether it's what we call the public water supplies, it is all coming from the same place. It is all coming from beneath the ground that we live in. And so we need to do everything that we can to protect it and make sure that we have a good source of water. So the goals and the objectives of the plan grew out of this extensive public update. And the first 4 goals of the plan focus on protecting the unique cultural and natural qualities of the town, particularly the groundwater resources, and providing housing opportunities to meet the needs of our year-round residents. So I'd like to now read from the vision statement. The vision statement is what everybody put together, our overall image, what we would like to be. East Hampton is defined by the unique character of its hamlets, villages, and countryside. East Hampton's beaches are rated among the world's best. The land supports one of the highest concentrations of rare and endangered species in New York State. The farmland is rated the best in New York State. The Nature Conservancy has designated the area as one of the last great places of the Western Hemisphere. The woodlands are diverse and healthy where they are undisturbed. The harbors and bays are among the cleanest in the state. The town is rich in historic and cultural resources. Development has not obliterated the natural and scenic characteristics covering all of Long Island at one point. The town is committed to sustaining this rich array of natural and cultural resources, authentic sense of place, rural character, and the people who make it unique. Goes on for a couple more paragraphs and then comes to a point about affordability. Although real estate continues to be very expensive, the town's affordable housing programs strive to enable long-time residents to retire and year-round employees to live here. So that was the picture, really, of what the community painted, and really set our goals, set our picture, set how are we going to get there, where are we striving to go. So where were we when we did this in terms of demographics at that time in the 2005 plan? We had done a prior plan in 1984, and there were some rezonings and there were some innovative planning techniques to help protect East Hampton's natural treasures. But after 20 years, an update was needed to incorporate the new conditions and other sorts of data. And while the 1984 plan worked fairly effectively, it did not stop growth, nor was it intended to. Between 1980 and 1990, East Hampton's population increased by 15%, and between 1990 and 2000, East Hampton was the fastest growing town in Suffolk County, with 22% population growth, compared to 7.4% countywide, 5.5% statewide. So here we're oftentimes viewed as being on the cutting edge of planning, doing some things that are more innovative than other areas. Has it stopped growth? No. Still one of the fastest growing communities in the region, even more so. So it's redirected growth to the areas that can accommodate it. Accompany this record population growth was a concomitant increase in housing units. There was a 15% increase between 1990 and 2000, and if you exclude the incorporated villages, it's even higher. It was 16.7%. That compares, it's almost twice as much as what was happening countywide, with 8.5%. And according to the zoning at the time, the 2005 comprehensive plan was put together, the number of housing units could increase by another 42%. 70% of the new homes built were second homes. And even if you exclude those from the development that was occurring, the number of new homes that were being built for year-round residents was increasing 8.5% over the 10-year period. So again, still keeping up with the region or exceeding it in every different way that you can measure it. When you look at the year-round population and the number of homes, they're almost the same. Why is that? It's because we've got such a large second home industry and second home number of houses. So it's not that we don't have enough housing units here, it's just who's occupying them. So the large number and percentage of second homes ranges from a high of 71% in Amagansett, 63% in Montauk, 57.9% in Waynescott, 46% in the Springs School District. The town-wide average at the last census was 54% of seasonal homes. And that has pretty much stayed the same over the past 20, 30 years. So having a very large segment of our community is second homeowners. Now, Springs had the highest population density and housing density of all the school districts. And although not a separate school district, it's noteworthy that the density in Springs exceeds even that of the density in East Hampton Village. Generally, you think of your villages as being your densest developed areas. But Springs is even higher than that. And on the other end of the spectrum is Waynescott, with the lowest population density, the lowest housing density, and the lowest absolute population. Now, couple that with the fact that East Hampton had a higher percentage of families living below the poverty line, 6.7% compared to 3.9% countywide. And the median family income is also lower than that of the county, about $10,000 lower in East Hampton than in all of Suffolk County. Now, how can that be? Whenever we go to planning conferences or other places, they're like, oh, East Hampton, you don't have any problem with affordability. Just get Billy Joel to write a check. You've got all those rich and famous. Well, it's true. The per capita income, when you're looking at it on an individual basis, is higher. So we do have a small segment of the population with a high income, but when you look at the average household income in the community, it is lower than the county that we live in by a significant amount. And then you look at the median value of housing, and in the 2000 census, East Hampton had the highest median value for occupied housing of all of Suffolk County. No private developers have built affordable housing in East Hampton town. Affordable properties in perpetuity have all been developed by the town and by nonprofit organizations, and many of these have also received government subsidies. And I'm sure Tom Rule is going to talk a little bit more about this. So we've got some kind of extreme conditions, high rates of growth, high desirability of the area as a resort, a strong second home market, high values of homes on the open market versus low income compared to the region. That really pretty much encapsulates the affordable housing problem. So when we apply the articulated goals and these diverse conditions, the 2005 plan recognized that there are really two separate housing markets. One, the open market, which is highly influenced by what goes on in Wall Street, the bonuses there, international desirability of being here, and the government-controlled affordable housing programs. So the plan called for and enacted rezonings to reduce the number of potential second homes in the sensitive landscapes, in or groundwater recharge areas, in those areas where all the endangered species are. And also in an area that would require costly infrastructure to expand to. And also increased and called for the increase of government control programs for more affordable units and houses. So there were 92 overall recommendations in the plan, spanning a multitude of topics, rezoning being part of it. Most of that was adopted. There was dark sky legislation, which was also adopted. Water resources management recommendations, suggested tax incentives, coordination with other agencies. Many, many different topics were covered. East Hampton has a long history of innovative planning, and open space preservation is really part of East Hampton's history. We were the first municipality in the state to adopt open space regulations mandating clustering. And maybe with the help of this map, I'll talk a little bit about where we do have some of this open space and what we have it for.
If you want my pointer?
Nah, okay.